So I've been getting a lot of questions on how to run a mage in New World, both DPS and healing. So hopefully in this video I'll go over both and give you guys a better understanding of how to run things and what builds you should be going for, what to prioritize in certain situations and stuff. But before we go into the staffs, your third weapon can honestly be anything. I run straight sword for the defensive passives in it, mainly recuperation for the increased healing by 10% from any source, whether it be health pots, your spells, anything else, as well as some other defensive stuff. Um, but you can also run hatchet if you're a solo player, Warhammer, but I haven't tried that out, so I'm not sure how that would work with staves. So, but from my experience, straight sword has, done me well. Whenever I get into a close combat fight, I usually use it to disengage, or if I'm getting hit, I can block. Um, but we'll start with life staff. I'll just go over each individual ability, and then at the end, I'll give you recommended builds for both PvE and PvP, as well as open world and siege PvP. So we'll start not with Holy Shield, but with Healing Pulse. So Healing Pulse, in my opinion, is the bread and butter of life staff users that want to either heal or just have something nice for a supportive ability. Um, Healing Pulse is just overall the easiest way to heal somebody. It gives a good amount of healing, and it gives about an 11-second dot on somebody that'll heal them over time. Um, yeah, 12 seconds. So it's easy to aim, does a good amount of healing. You can heal yourself with it, and this combined with the passive Celestial Projectile gives you a solid base for healing. With the intelligence that I have about 1346 weapon damage on my life staff. This gives me, or this gives my heavy projectiles about 750 heal power. Well, healing. So this is what I usually spam when I'm healing in groups, as well as hitting healing pulse whenever I can hit multiple people. If my team is on a boss, I'll throw down healing pulse and then heavy attacks as needed. But this right here is the base of every healer and anybody that wants to be a support. Next we'll talk about Holy Shield. Holy Shield, strictly, in my opinion, is siege only. I have never ever used it in open world. I've never used it in PvE. I strictly use it for siege. And it is one of the 3 abilities that I would suggest always taking to sieges. It is invaluable what Holy Shield can do for you and your team, especially once you get the increased size. The mana drain rate is nice, as well as the reduced cost of it. I would always suggest taking it, because mana is a big issue for mages, and I'll talk about that more when we talk about Siphon. But Holy Shield is absolutely necessary in sieges. Taking points, blocking your teammates. There are so many projectiles in sieges. You absolutely need Holy Shield. If you are running a life staff and you don't main healing, or you just use it as an extra weapon for the dash, I would always suggest having Holy Shield on your life staff when you're sieging. I would take off the dash just to get Holy Shield if I was in that situation. So then we'll talk about Divine Embrace. Now, Divine Embrace is, in my opinion, it's not as it's very situational. I know a lot of people would take both Healing Pulse, Divine Embrace, and then call it a day. They'd be like, yeah, I want to take this healing ability. I mainly use Divine Embrace just as a self-heal. I don't really use it to heal other people. It is too hard to hit people with it. The circle of it is so small, pretty much unless you're really lucky or really good at your aim, you need to have somebody stand still to heal them. And mostly in fights, you're not going to be seeing people standing still that often, especially if they absolutely need a heal. And you're only using this when people absolutely need a heal, um, because of the mana cost of it. This is a lot more efficient. It heals a good amount, especially over time, and it costs less mana. This, if you miss, is completely worthless. So I mainly use it to heal myself. What you can do is run up to people who are low HP and heal yourself and them. That way, if you miss, you at least heal yourself. But it's so situational. I usually only use it as a self heal, and it heals a lot. I can usually heal about 5,000 health, which a lot of times will pretty much full heal most people, um, at least below like 45, level 45. Um, so then we'll go to, well, real quick, just some of the passives. Obviously, Celestial Projectile. You can go Sacred Protection as well if you have an extra point, but I would prioritize other things before this passive. It's good, but it's not game changing. This aura I haven't really tested out too much. I like that it's once every 2 minutes, but the 4 meter radius is very small. You're not going to be in people's faces with a life staff like this. For melee based builds, you could try this. I'm not sure if you need to have the life staff out for you to get this healing aura, but that's something that can be tested at some point. Mass Resurrection, I haven't tried this yet. Obviously, I'm sure it would be good for healers to take, but this isn't something that's super priority. I would definitely take Sacred Protection, even Arcane Justice before that. And finally, Mana Flow. Mana Flow is an interesting one. It's definitely good to have, but also just like Mass Resurrection is not like a super priority. Well, not Mass Resurrection, Sacred Protection. I would say these two are about, I would take Sacred Protection over Mana Flow, but then I would take Mana Flow. It's when you hit an enemy, you get mana back, and that includes Smite. So it's not just your left clicks and your heavy attacks. It's also Smite that will give you mana back. So it's something to think about. If you have an extra point, I would put it in that. If you were having like massive mana troubles and you don't have a lot of pots. But when we come up with Life Stealer, we'll talk about Siphon now. Because as a mage, you will have mana troubles. It is tough sometimes, especially if you don't have mana pots, mana food. I would suggest regen food for PvE, and I would suggest mana pots and pot regen for PvP. When you're, especially during sieges, mana food regen, when you're getting hit so often, you're not getting the benefit from that regen, because every time you get hit, it will stop the regen. So potions don't have that. You can just drink a potion, it gives you the mana, or drink a mana regen potion and it will regen that mana for 30 seconds. I would suggest making those. Even the tier 1 mana regen potion is a significant increase to your DPS and healing output, just for the fact that you actually have mana to spend. Siphon is a very, very strong ability for PvE, not PvP. Just for the fact that you don't really want to get close to people when you're fighting as a mage. You want to keep your distance. But Siphon in PvE, especially if you can jump up on something, which is usually what I do to heal people, that way I'm not getting hit and not taking aggro and stuff. Siphon will give you mana back. And not just give you mana back, but if you get Lifestealer, you will also heal as well. Now, it's not a significant heal. You can't just Siphon something and tank hits. You can get stunned out of the Siphon if you get hit. But it's a nice thing to have. But just having at least the first 2 perks for the increased range of Siphon is a huge boost in your healing ability, just because you can maintain your mana much longer. Um, so Siphon, in my opinion, is strictly a PvE ability, but a very strong one. Speed of Light, most people know about this. I don't really need to explain it that much. It's not something that's like necessary for healers or mages. You take it if you need to travel somewhere quickly. You can take it if you want to engage or disengage. 90% of the time, I do not use Speed of Light, even when I'm PvPing, um, because I'm mostly I go down with the ship. If we're in a fight, I'm using my abilities. I'm using everything that I can to keep my team alive, not run away. Um, so it's up to you whether you want to use Speed of Light as a mage. Um, but I usually do not take it unless I'm traveling somewhere or if I don't care too much about my points. Once you get to level 20, you usually can take Speed of Light and still have most of the abilities that you want, and I'll show you in a bit 2 builds that I usually run. And finally, Smite. Smite is the only damaging ability, other than Siphon, technically, that Lifestaff has, and it's very similar, if not exactly the same, other than I believe it's pretty much the same as Pillar of Fire, except I believe Pillar of Fire is a smaller circle, and I think it catches people on fire or gives them a fire debuff or something. But Smite is a larger circle than Pillar of Fire, but it does a massive amount of damage. Smite is something that not a lot of people think of taking, but if you have a lot of intelligence like I do, and your staff is like leveled up, like that is your damaging ability. If you're a healer, you can run around with just a life staff and kill people with Smite. Uh, the amount of intelligence that I have and the weapon damage, I can hit 2,000 damage on people just running around during fights, um, as well as on mobs. Groups of mobs, 2,000 damage will nearly one-shot or two-shot most things. Um, it's a really nice ability to have, especially during sieges when people are grouped up. Uh, but it's one of those things where um, it's kind of preference. If you're really good at healing and really good at landing your celestial projectiles and your healing pulses, then you can take Smite for an extra bit of damage. But if you struggle with healing, I would suggest just taking Divine Embrace. So now that we've gone through every ability in the Life Staff, uh, I'll show you just 2 simple builds that I go for. So if I wanted to heal in a PvE raid, if we're going to go and grind some mobs, I would suggest the 5 most important abilities for a life staff, in my opinion. Um, Healing Pulse and Celestial Projectile. Then I would go with at least the first 2 perks for Siphon um, to get the increased range. And then um, depending on whether you want damage or if you need healing, I would go Divine Embrace or Smite. For me, I go with Smite, and I like to take all 3 perks just for the increased damage. It's 25 increased and then an additional 30%. I'm not sure if that means it's 55 or if it's 30 on the 25 or however that math works. All I know is it does a lot of damage. So this is, I believe, what, 10 points? That's 5. That's 5, yeah. That's 10 points right there. And that's a pretty solid build. You can take out that and then get these 3 as well for Divine Embrace. That's a level 10 staff right there. For higher tiers, for your next points at least, I would suggest getting Spirits United for increased mana regen. Not just for yourself, but your group by 25%. It's very nice. Also the cooldown reduction by 10%. And then past that, I would prioritize the base health, possibly mana flow if you were still struggling with mana. You could get life stealer as well if you wanted a little bit of health regen by siphoning. It's always something nice because a lot of times I'm not healing myself. I'm just letting my food or siphon heal for me. And with 4 points left, there's a couple things you could do. If you wanted to, you could just have Divine Embrace, just so you could switch it out with Smite if you wanted to. Let's say you don't really need to be doing damage. You could just switch over to Divine Embrace on your ability bar. Or if you wanted to, you could have the dash. So if you wanted to travel somewhere, you switch out Speed of Light with, Siphon or Smite and just dash somewhere. That way you don't always have to respec. But past that, Arcane Rage is a pretty decent passive in my opinion, but the problem is you always want to be above 90% HP. I do not use it during sieges, only because I'm getting hit so much, and it's rare that I'm ever above 90% HP and able to use that damage output. Soul Steal is something, especially with Smite. Soul Steal is very good. You'll regen health when you kill an enemy, and you'll be killing most things with Smite anyway, so. But other than that, there's really not that much. Transcendence is kind of useless. I don't really use Mass Resurrection or Resuscitate. You can take Resuscitate. So what I would suggest is just taking the speeds and probably Arcane Justice. And so that's a normal PvE build that I would use with Lifestaff. PvP, open world, it's very similar. Pretty much the same thing. The only thing I would probably switch out is I would take Healing Pulse, Divine Embrace mostly for a self heal. I would not take Siphon, so I would go with the Refresh, Soul Steal to get the next tiers, and then I would take Smite and Speed of Light, just so I could switch between Divine Embrace and Speed of Light if I wanted to, or Smite if I'm not focusing on damage. And then passes as you need them. Like I said, Sacred Protection is a good one. Arcane Justice, Spirits United is very important, and Mana Flow if you're still struggling with mana. For sieges, start off the same thing. Most healers, there's the 5. Gotta have these 5. Absolute most important for healers or any support build. I'll keep saying it, just to get it stuck in everybody's head. Holy Shield is a must. It's an absolute must for sieges. It's just so good at stopping projectiles, both from players and from siege equipment. Mages, it'll stop the meteors. It's just so good at protecting and holding points for attacking. Defending, even defending, is important. Especially when the attackers break through the gates, there are still points that you'll need to protect and to stand on. So Holy Shield is just overall really important. Sacred Protection for sure in a situation like this. With a lot of friendlies in close proximity, you'll want to give them that extra advantage over the enemy with that HP. Since we're not taking Siphon, which I'll do more testing in the future with it to see if it's even possible to use Siphon in PvP situations. But I would just go with Refresh Soul Steal and then Smite. And then that would be, along with Spirits United, and that would be a solid siege build. This is what I take into every siege. You can throw in Mana Flow, Resuscitate, Arcane Justice, Mass Resurrection if you wanted. I haven't tried using Ancient Guardian, mainly just because it takes 15 minutes to use again, and it only lasts for 10 seconds, and it's only it'll keep you alive, but it can accidentally proc if you get low, but you're not in any danger, or if you can get rezzed quickly. So I don't worry too much about this. Same thing with the super siphon. I've used it. It's cool. It's PvE, honestly, just like siphon is. So this would be a full build for siege. If you don't have this many points, I would suggest something like this. This would be, I believe, 15 points, and if you have even less, probably take that out. And then if you can't take Smite, then just get Speed of Light or something. If you had even less points, I think this is, how many is this? 5, 8, 9, 10. This is 10 points. If you absolutely need to do that, you could even do this if you wanted to. So, just real quick, this would be a full build for a siege at level 20 life staff. So, I'll end it here. I'll make this into a life staff video, and I'll make another flame staff video after this, since this went on so long. If you have any questions, message me on Discord, or if you're somebody that isn't in the guild and you have a question about this, message me on YouTube. I'll more than likely answer. So hopefully this helped. I might have to make an updated version of this at some point, so we'll see. But there you go. Good luck, healers, and try not to run out of mana.